Welcome back to another video in the top-down RPG template tutorial series. In our previous video, we created various types of skills. In today's video, we will delve into creating different types of items. So let's get started. Firstly, we need to create our own data table for items using the structure provided in the documentation. We will replace the existing data table in the corresponding composite data table. Make sure to refer to the documentation to learn more about the variables used in the data table. Depending on the item type, we need to create another data table to further modify the item specifications. Let's create a sword. Dimensions is the amount of slots this item will cover on the inventory. Set the item image and rotated version of it. Price value is the base price of the item. It can go up based on amount of stacks and bonuses it has. Lifetime on ground determines how many seconds this item will stay on the ground before it is destroyed. Now we need to set the pickup mesh for the item, which will be displayed when the item is on the ground. To customize it further, we will create a blueprint from the Pickup Item class and set the mesh from the Components section. This sword mesh is really big and also the rotation is wrong. You can always place the blueprint on the ground to preview how it will look like. We will adjust the rotation and scale to make it look more realistic. And ensure that the mouse detection component covers the mesh. Lastly, we will move the item button component over the mesh, which is the UI name that appears when the mouse is hovered. Items simulate physics by default when they drop, but that can be turned off from the blueprint. Don't forget to assign the pickup blueprint we just created to the item data table. Since this item is an equipment, we need to create a separate data table for it using the structure provided in the documentation. We will copy the ID of the item from the item data table to the equipment data table and replace the default equipment data table in the corresponding composite data table with ours. Next, we will set the equipment type and rarity, which will change the color of the equipment's name. We can also set requirements, defense, and socket amount. This setup is used throughout the template, where there are min-max values and a chance to have this trait on the item. We can bias towards the minimum value, which increases the chance for the minimum value to occur. We will make sure this sword has minimum 1 socket. Once that's done, we can determine how the equipment will appear on different character classes, as the same equipment may look different on different characters. To further customize the appearance of the equipment when equipped, we can use the Custom Equipped blueprint, which runs an event when the equipment is equipped. This is useful if we want to modify how the character looks with the equipment. When using the blueprint, we need to set the socket name for the equipment and make sure that the socket exists on the character. Moving on, we can add bonuses to the weapon. Each bonus has its own percentage chance of appearing. While guaranteed bonuses have a chance of appearing against each other. Only one bonus is selected from the list, and the chance determines the ratio between them. Since this is a weapon, we need to create a separate data table, using the structure provided in the documentation. We'll need to copy the equipment ID into the weapon data table and replace the existing weapons data table from the composite weapon data table with ours. We also need to set the minimum and maximum damage for the weapon, as well as the melee range, which determines the maximum distance the player character can attack with this weapon equipped. For ranged weapons like bows, we need to set the throw range. Additionally, since our character can use dual weapons, we need to provide a socket for the left hand and ensure that our character has the same socket on its skeleton. Next, we need to set animations for the weapon. Every weapon can have its own animation based on the character class, so we'll need to set animations for the right-hand weapon and then repeat the process for the left hand. It's important to make sure that the attack animations in here are left-hand related. Finally, we can play and test our weapon. We should be able to see the weapon on the debug list, and every time we generate the weapon, we should get different bonuses as we designed. We can also check if the pickup blueprint looks good and verify that the animations are correct with each hand. Let's turn this into a set equipment by providing a set ID from another data table. Create your own data table using the structure provided in the documentation. Then replace the existing data table from the corresponding composite data table. Add an ID and a name for the set. And don't forget to copy the set ID and set it on the equipment data table. If you want to change the appearance of the character when the player completes the set, create an equipment set blueprint and assign it here. Next, we need to add equipment IDs to this set. Provide a name and individual bonuses for the equipment. We can add more equipment, but for the sake of this tutorial, we will keep it at 1. Finally, set the bonuses that the player will receive when the set is completed. Press play and test. The name and bonuses should be displayed correctly on the item tooltip. We can see the bonuses on the Advanced Stats dialog. Next, let's create a container item. For this type of item, we need to create a separate data table. Don't forget to replace the existing data table on the composite data table as well. All types of items need to be on the item data table, so let's add it there first. Set the name and description and make sure the type is a container. Now we can copy the item ID and paste it into the container data table. Containers provide extra inventory space that can be set here, and they can also transmute the containing items into something else. Let's test by right-clicking a container, which should open up the extra inventory space. We will cover the transmute feature in another video. Next, let's create a quest item. Create a data table for it and replace the existing one on the composite data table. Add the quest item to the item's data table. Then copy the item ID to the quest data table. We can set which quest this item is related to, but we will cover this in the quest video on another day. Press play and test. Now, let's create a jewel Socketable. Create a new data table for Socketables and modify the composite data table. Add the jewel to the item data table, then copy the item ID into the Socketable data table. Change the Socketable type to a jewel. For jewels, we can leave the equipment logic section empty because the data will come from their own data table. For gems and runes, we can add bonuses based on which equipment type they are socketed. Each Socketable can change how the equipment looks, and the images are displayed on top of the equipment image in the inventory. The blueprint runs a custom event that lets us modify the equipment mesh, but for this tutorial, we will not modify the look of equipment. Let's create the data table for jewels. Copy the Socketable ID and paste it into the jewel data table. Add the bonuses that this jewel will provide when socketed. Press play and test. We should be able to see the jewel bonus when it is socketed on the sword. Finally, let's create a usable item. create the data table for it, add it to the item data table, and then add the same ID to the usable data table. Set the sound that should play when this item is used. We can also adjust the background color of the hotkey. Lastly, we need a blueprint for the logic. Create one using Usable Item-Based Blueprint as the parent class. We can override the CanUseItem function and define a condition for this item to be used. By default, none of the usable items have a condition. We need to override the serverUseItem event for every usable item and call the onItemUsed event at the end. To heal the player character, we will have this item restore 10 health points over a period of 5 seconds. Once we assign the usable item blueprint to the data table, we can test it out. This item can be stacked. And using it will increase our health over time as we have designed. Thank you for watching.